Good morning and welcome to our latest episode of the Ecomm Engine. This morning, I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend and CRM extraordinaire, Mr. Rich Evans. Good morning, Rich. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. I have so many questions to ask you, mainly about Klaviyo, but around CRM in general. So before I do, perhaps you could just give those who don't know who you are. My first thing would be like, where the hell have you been? But if they don't know who you are, perhaps just tell them a bit about you, about Get Better, and then we'll dive into the meat of today's conversation.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm out of practice because this is like first official activity after a very lush summer of not a lot of events and things. But I am the founder of Get Better. We are a Klaviyo agency. So we very much focus on the Klaviyo platform, but all of the ecosystem around it. So we're partnered with GoQuick, Relo, Skio, all of the general apps that you would associate with retention CRM. We are one of Klaviyo's elite partners, which is something that we were given last year. There's only 2 of us in the UK, only 40 worldwide. So fair to say we like to think we know our stuff. And as Klaviyo has developed, we've grown and developed with it. So team of 25 here in sunny North Devon.
So I love that. Sunny North Devon. To achieve all that in North Devon is extraordinary. Very good. Now, one thing I wanted to start the conversation about is today who were talking about this kind of CRM like engine, and it seems so much more than just email marketing. Have you seen much of an evolution or a shift from brands in the last 12 to 24 months where they're not just talking about email, but maybe they're looking at customer service? And again, I see Klaviyo bolting on a few components their side. So is CRM becoming a bit more rounded and not just email?
Yeah, I think anyone that is using Klaviyo or some of the other sort of proper CRM tools still just to broadcast and send campaign emails are the ones that are sort of struggling, complaining about cost, and because it is so much more now. It is really more about having a centralized data hub and email just being one of the channels and not just broadcasting to many, but having triggered unique personalized experiences based on all of those data and events that are feeding into the platform. So yeah, I think it's very much matured from being a broadcast, let's send an email to everyone once a week, to now being an engine that's powered by hundreds and hundreds of data points and events, triggering action across multiple platforms.
Rich, are you back with us?
Definitely your signal, but
My
I'm still
signal.
here.
Well, I'm sure what you said was enthralling, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it. And I think just for some context, I'm down today in London, and I said to Rich, I'll be there at 10 o'clock, and 9:59, I'm messaging him saying, Rich, I'm logging in now. And we managed to find somewhere in a cool booth. So if I do lose you, you're with Rich, and he'll just ad lib for the duration. So, Rich, I appreciate you sharing your context there. I think one thing again, chatting to a few brands recently is around this migration piece. And a lot of people, when they're looking at a migration, might think about the SEO implication. Perhaps they might think about the dev partner and who's going to take them, etc. But rarely does CRM seem in the front of people's mind. It seems like a bit of an afterthought. From your side, why is the point of migration a really great moment to think, actually, before we do this, maybe we need to check that our own Klaviyo setup is in order as part of the migration?
Yeah, this is going to be fun because you sort of look like a badly dubbed Bruce Lee film where your mouth is moving, but the words are at a different point as well. So yeah, hopefully
we'll give it another go, and if not, we'll find another time. And so, Rich, did you get the question, or do we need to run through that?
I did, and luckily, I also have the Google Doc with the questions laid out here. So even where they freeze, I'll be able to do it. Yeah, I think time and time again, what we see is brands will get in touch with us right at the point of going live. Oh, we're going live in 2 weeks, and our dev agency has just asked us what we're doing about our CRM. So could you help us? I'm like, yeah, if we can time machine back 12 weeks. I think any migration is tricky and scary, and involves cost and time and things like that. And so completely understand how people would get blinkered and just sort of focus on the platform side of it. But it is a real opportunity to audit, rebuild. And I think with your CRM now, Klaviyo or otherwise, is so centric to everything and so intertwined, especially if that migration is from a legacy platform over to Shopify. I'd say a huge percentage of Klaviyo's strength in the market is its link with Shopify and just how closely bound they are. So it is a really good opportunity. You're going to be able, even if you're still staying on Klaviyo and not migrating from another CRM at the same time, even if it's just I'm staying on Klaviyo but I'm migrating, it's a really good opportunity to audit everything that you're doing. To make sure that when you're moving things over, the triggers that trigger your flows, the properties that are triggering dynamic activity in emails and stuff are all solid. But also just to make sure that you're going to be making the most of it. There are good integrations with most website platforms now for Klaviyo and in most CRMs, but I would say the suite of things that are available to you once you're migrating over to a Shopify extends exponentially. So it's looking at all of the extra functionality that it's going to bring you and making sure that you're making the most of it from day one.
Is there a typical pitfall or something you see brands make time and time again that you think if you're going to do anything, just make sure that you check this? Because I'm sure a lot of people might listen to this and go, oh, you know what, I might get an audit, but actually we're a little late in the process. I should have reached out to Rich 12 weeks ago, but I haven't. I am 2 weeks out. One thing you must check to make sure before you go live.
One thing.
I mean, I didn't put those in the questions. I just thought I'd chuck a curveball and see what we got.
Yeah, no, there's probably a small list of things. I would say one is we don't get involved with Shopify. We leave that to you and other experts and things. But I know one consideration and one tick box, like, do you want to do this or not, is about the migration of previous order history and stuff like that. And I also know that that's quite a big job, and so can come with quite a big line cost. And given it's optional, where a migration might be, a budget concern, that might be one of the things to go. And I would say that's one of the biggest misses when it comes to the Klaviyo side of it, because if you think about it from a future-proof and segmentation point of view, what you lose is that ability. From day one, you'll be fine. You'll be able to, obviously react to people when they place an order and things, but you lose that sort of opportunity to be able to go into Klaviyo and say, well, okay, this person's placed an order. How many orders have they placed over the last 2-3 years? Because I want to tailor the content I send them differently to someone that's never ordered before. When all the purchase history and order history and stuff doesn't come over, you are at the risk of having to treat everyone the same as if they're a one-time purchaser. So you lose a little bit of that. I'd say the biggest pitfall, though, so that's probably the biggest consideration for like whether you want to do that job or not. The biggest pitfall is probably the broken links and the broken triggers, broken images and things, because most CRM and Klaviyo setups will have dynamic images, dynamic products, dynamic links pulled in from the website and from properties that you hold on that person. So if they rely on content that is on a existing site and that's not going to look the same or be in the same place on the new site, then those flows are still going to be firing, but with broken images, broken properties and things. So yeah, I'd say testing QA is probably as crucial. The point that you're testing the dev store to test within the Klaviyo side of it as well.
I guess one question I've got is around fresh data versus legacy data. And some people might take this opportunity to look at it and go, you know what? Our CRM is full of junk. We've never cleansed it. We've never kept on top of it. What is your approach to kind of starting afresh? And we sometimes see this with brands and they say, we're not going to pull order data. We're not going to pull customer data. We're just going to have a clean instance. And then you think, well, how much value are you losing, etc.? What side of the fence do you sit on in terms of it might be NAF data, but some data is better than no data? Or do you think, no, totally new Klaviyo instance, set up a total fresh?
I think that the key is if you've got an opportunity, it's like when you move house, isn't it? Like, do you just pack everything up that's in the house that you've lived in for the last 3 or 4 years and just move it over to the new house? Or do you use it as an opportunity to have a little bit of a filter at the front door of the new house and say, right, well, stuff is only coming in here if there's a use case for it, if we need it, if we've used it in the last year, it comes in. So I actually did that with our house move. We moved 18 months ago. And I sort of said, right, this stuff is going in the garage. If it doesn't make it into the house because it's being used in the next 12 months, then it's off. And it's a little bit of a sort of filtering process. So I would say it's an opportunity. You'll be carrying a lot of old properties. So people that signed up for early access to Black Friday in 2023. You don't need to bring everything over. So I would say absolutely have an audit and a proper cleanup before the go live date so that you do start afresh. What might be an idea though is to hold like a CSV somewhere with everything on, just in case you get that moment where it's like, oh, where's that Christmas tree stand that we used a few years ago and it hasn't made the cut. So where we want to segment people by a property for something that we did in 2023. If that hasn't made the cut, then it's maybe good to just have it somewhere where you can tag everyone in with it. We're in an awkward spot now where I've lost Nathan, but it's his turn to talk.
Back in the game.
Here we go. Well, I happen to know that Nathan's next question is around silo busting and retailers having multiple different channels, multiple different tech and things, and the balance of consolidating stuff. I'm just asking myself a question at this point, Nath, which I think is your next question about working in silos and things. And beyond open rates and things, what should a lean e-commerce be leveraging when it comes to the apps and other systems around email and SMS? So answer to that is centralized data. So by now, everyone will sort of realize that Klaviyo is an obvious bias of mine. Absolutely, other platforms are available, but Klaviyo is a bias of ours. What we try and encourage all clients to do and anyone we audit is to have Klaviyo be your centralized point of truth. So your centralized CRM system. Klaviyo announced themselves as that was their direction of travel 2 years ago. And so they've been adding in modules and adding in more integrations and more line data. So we absolutely have loyalty, review, have the different tech if that is right for you, or you've got existing relationships. But just ensure in a world where pretty much everything will integrate with Klaviyo, that you have it integrated with Klaviyo. So reviews, loyalty, make sure that all of those events are firing into Klaviyo, so that even if they're not firing from Klaviyo as emails and review requests and things, they are absolutely telling Klaviyo that it's happening, because that builds better segmentation of your audience and things. So, for example, a positive review coming in is a really great time to trigger a flow to say, when now's a good time to refer a friend, because there's points available for that. I think another recommendation, especially if it's a lean team and you haven't maybe got capabilities to audit, I say this a lot, is to just secret shop yourself. Set up like an alias email, so one that you've never used on site, has never been sort of touched before, just to sign up, abandon a checkout, and then make a purchase, and then try and redeem some points, put a review in when the review request comes in, because that's a really, really good way to see how many different channels are firing, how many different emails, and how they're colliding. If all of those events are firing into Klaviyo, then you should be able to make sure that you're never oversending and everything's true. But the absolute goal for me should be that everything fires out from Klaviyo. I think you're back, and what I did is I asked myself the next question.
I saw, and you ever the professional Rich did a sterling job, and I was quite enjoying that. And I was like, you don't even need me here. Maybe I should just always have internet issues. But I think the one thing I'm curious about is how people go to that state that you've just talked about, where Klaviyo does become the single source of truth, where the reality is at the moment, you've got a loyalty system housing some data, you've got a reviews platform housing some data, you've got Shopify housing some data, Klaviyo maybe doing a little bit. Where do you start? And let's just say the brand listening wants to get to that solid state where Klaviyo is a single source of truth, but currently it's across 5-6 systems. Is there a particular one you would do first and say, you know what, if you're going to integrate anything, let's do the loyalty system first? Or would you go with SMS first or something else?
I would, because the way that loyalty and reviews have to work, they will have to integrate with Shopify. So I would go and open up your Shopify apps list on one screen. I would then go to the Klaviyo integrations page and directory on another screen, and I would just check them one by one. At the same time, I would probably realize that you've still got some apps installed that you haven't used for 3 years, and heaven forbid you might even still be paying $19 a month for them.
Yeah.
But I would just go one by one and see, does an integration, an out-of-the-box integration exist? And so if it's, you'll go to the loyalty section on Klaviyo, and it'll be Loyalty Lion, Smile, Glue, Yotpo, they'll all be there. And then it's just generally, it's a one click. You auth it on both ends, and then it's in there. Now, it won't immediately start firing out emails, but it will start firing in events. And so what you will then see is every time somebody accrues points, moves into a new tier, those events will exist in Klaviyo. Do it with reviews, do it with anything basically that you've got installed on Shopify that has a Klaviyo integration. Because at that point, all you're doing is probably a half-hour job, depending on the amount of tech that you have, and just making sure that all the events start firing into Klaviyo. So then you're at the point where you've got this wealth of data, and you can then decide, well, what do I want to do with this? Now, it might be that you're using a reviews platform where the email builder, the look and feel of your reviews emails, you've done the secret shop yourself, you've been asked for a review, and you're like, my God, that looks horrible. Like, that's not an email that I want customers to be receiving, never mind asking them to review us positively. So if you can't, then if that is a limitation of the platform, the email builder, then that's the first one to say, right, well, I'm going to move this flow into Klaviyo. So I'm going to fire out good looking review request emails from Klaviyo and turn them off in the review machine. So you're still using the main power of the review machine that times it right and asks the right question, but you're using the look and feel of Klaviyo to do it. And then also you can play with segmentation then. So the example I just made at the end of the last answer, which I don't know if you caught or not, was if someone gives you a positive review from Yotpo, say, then that will fire an event into Klaviyo. So left a positive review. That's a really good trigger to then send someone an email within 24 hours to say, did you know that if you refer a friend, you get X, Y, or Z? Because you know that you've got positive sentiment from that person. And so it's a really good time. If they're positively reviewing you without incentive, they will probably be positively reviewing you to their friends. So if they know that they can then have an incentive for that, great.
I did get that, and I was enjoying that analogy from Yotpo. And now I've wanted to ask you this for ages, which is around best in class versus all under one roof. And I really struggle with this because our agency mantra has always been be a specialist rather than a generalist, and then intro partners that are best in class. Yet more and more tools, Klaviyo included, seem to be eating the lunch of others. So if you look at, I've always said Klaviyo for email, no problem at all. Gorgeous customer service, no problem at all. A WhatsApp solution, a Go Quick, or something similar, like no problem at all. But actually now there's an opportunity to do it all within Klaviyo. Where do you sit on that debate in terms of actually our reviews going to be powered by Klaviyo? They're going to be powered by Judge Me, for example. Like, where do you sit in that battle between all in one solution versus across 3 or 4 different systems?
We've had healthy debates on this a few times and stuff, and I think we can settle it. I'm going to benefit from this because people can't hear you; they can hear me. So, I am more than happy with best in class tools. I think from a SaaS point of view, obviously it's the same with some agencies decide, they want to grow their business, they want to increase revenue, they want to increase average value of each client and stuff, same as we all do for our e-commerce brands and things. And so there's 2 ways of doing that. You can increase volume and get more users, or you can increase what people pay by increasing other modules and things like that. So I think there is some of the Klaviyo additions have been because they are absolutely the right additions to make to build what is a CRM platform now, as opposed to just an email data tool. Some of the additions I think have been probably more because that's a reason that we can go and try and upsell our customers. My belief on tech and apps and stuff is you absolutely should go and look at what the best tool is for you and your business. So best tool for your customers, best tool for your team, best tool for the way in which you're set up for business. But I think there's a bit of a problem where people are, they sit on events like this, they go to other events, and they get sort of sold the idea of a piece of tech, and they just plug it in and then expect it to just work. And I think they probably haven't used the extent of their native functionality on whatever tool they've got before deciding that they then need a tool to superpower that. So if you're doing really great guns on social, and you're getting people from social to the website and stuff, then absolutely Klaviyo social marketing tool is a really, really great addition, because it enables you to get people straight from the Instagram inbox into Klaviyo. Great. And I think Jack and the team has written a blog for you guys on one of your upcoming white papers that's going out. So, but if you're not doing anything on social, and you have not grown followers, and you're not getting engagement, it's not going to do anything for you. It's a complete waste of money. I think if you don't have a help desk function at the moment, and you are doing everything on email, or asking people to just sort of send you a DM and you're answering things that way, then Klaviyo's help desk will absolutely be an upgrade on that. However, if you're already quite advanced and you're on a Zendesk or something, then it might be, Gorgeous is absolutely a built for purpose tool and can do that. If you just want to trial a bit of WhatsApp, Klaviyo can do that for you. If you hit the limits of the functionality that Klaviyo has for WhatsApp, then Go Quick is the obvious choice, because it's a built for purpose tool. So I think that absolutely is a place for best-in-class tools, as long as you have pushed the native functionality that you have available to you without further cost first, and you need to then go and superpower that, and you're going to use it to the full extent. And then coming back to the first point, whatever you choose, just make sure it feeds into your central source of truth, which should be Klaviyo. So if you've got a new tool, just make sure it's talking to Klaviyo. So if that is a WhatsApp tool, or it is a reviews tool, that Klaviyo knows what it's doing and the data's feeding back in, so you don't just end up sending everything to everyone all the time on every platform.
So I was going to start again as a clean slate, etc. What would you have in the stack versus not the stack? But I really like that concept of actually use everything native up to as much as you can, almost like MVP or proof of concept, etc. And then as and when you've got critical mass, then you can start to scale it up, invest in bigger, better tools, etc. If you can still hear me, I have a piece around Shopify migration, just in terms of bringing you in. Did you say 12 weeks before a migration is when you need to bring in, or what is that cutoff point for brands to know when you should bring in someone like Get Better to support on a migration?
Yeah, I think I flippantly threw out 12 weeks because that was a live quote from a call where someone 2 weeks out from a migration to Shopify Markets, which consolidates 3 Klaviyo accounts into one, said, right, what would your ideal next steps be here? And the answer was, well, we start this 12 weeks ago, because I'm very sarcastic. Really, the point to bring any sort of Klaviyo input or any Klaviyo plans as part of a migration in is at the very beginning. So as soon as you know, right, we're doing this, we are going to be, then Klaviyo should be a consideration, or your CRM platform should be a consideration. So part of the planning, part of the milestones, the reality is the majority of the work happens later on in the build phase. But it should absolutely be like actions on the timeline right from the very beginning. Decide who needs to do what, when they need to do it, rather than waiting until you're a week or so out from go live and then sort of saying, right, what are we doing here then, guys? Because the work it's not scary, it's not difficult, but it does need time. And like warming needs time and testing needs time. So yeah, the more time, the better. So I think having us in at the beginning of a sort of project, so discovery, and once you've set your timelines and stuff, then just start putting some Klaviyo milestones in the build timeline, ramping up to then when the bigger work happens, which is nearer the go live.
You've got a piece here around you mentioned a few times the audit process, Rich, and I just want to understand for someone like I often am concerned with audits because one person's audit is very different to someone else's audit, and I seem to remember seeing an audit you did for one of our brands, and it was pretty in depth compared to what we've maybe seen elsewhere. What goes into a typical audit, and what can brands expect? Because this kind of audit concept, I think a lot of people might think free or something like that, but actually sometimes just invest into an audit and have it more in depth and a bit deeper is really important. So what does your audit look like in terms of component parts?
So we stepped away from free audit culture probably 18 months ago now. We've worked really hard on our audits. I think it's fair to say don't have specialist skilled salespeople in house. We have me and Jack and our sort of happy places partnerships and nurturing relationships and things. And so what we're not is like silver tongue salespeople and things. And I think a lot of free audits, in order to do something for free, it generally has to be quite quick, especially if you're doing them at volume. So they generally tend to be a certain cookie cutter set of numbers pulled into a deck. Now, I don't want to say that's all free audits. There are some really great audits out there and things. But what we'd move to is like a paid audit process. So they're a very functional audit. So our audits can be used to sort of take and say, right, well, that's great. Our internal team has got some direction now. We're going to take this from here and we're going to get this sorted. Or it can serve as a purpose to say, right, this is setting up a perfect schedule of works now. So our aim with an audit is to really leave no stone unturned. So we will look at everything from how data comes in, so the different signups and the different embeds and all the sort of different tributaries, if you like, that contribute to your reservoir of data, all the different ways that people can come in. We will then look in depth at every flow. And so we're looking at each flow from a functionality point of view. So the triggers, the filters on that triggers, who's falling into the flow, what the content they're being served and when they're being served it. Campaign strategy, so segmentation or lack of generally, deliverability, design and everything. So it really doesn't leave anything on the table. I spent 2 hours feeding back an audit yesterday to an Ecomm subscription brand just because there was a lot to go through. I think that's the other thing as well as the delivery. So we deliver it in a workshop. It's not just like, right, here's a deck and there's a proposal attached to it. So I think in-depth auditing and looking at your data, looking at how much bad data you're holding as well that could mitigate against any platform costs and stuff where they're based on active profiles. I think I would recommend though, and I've mentioned it already, like an audit, if that sounds a bit scary or you're put off by the idea of paying for an audit, then I think the secret shop yourself is a really, really good way to audit, because you can look at a Klaviyo account and you can see which flows are live and which flows aren't. The best thing to do is to just put yourself in your customer's shoes and sign up to everything that they're signing up to, perform the actions that they're performing, and then go and just see what emails that gives you. Ideally on a clean email address like an alias, so that you can actually see what were generated by that mock secret shop.
Which I've got I seem to have this thing where every kind of 4 or 5 minutes my internet will drop. So I'm desperate to ask you this question now. Bo, who's a lovely guy, runs a brilliant Google Ads, paid search, paid social agency, does a lot with Meta as well. You're just asking for some best practice around integrating Klaviyo with Google and Meta ads. Anything you can share on that? And actually, I'm sure you can follow up with Bo afterwards as well. But certainly for the purpose of this, I'd love to chat. And then I'd like to come to Igor's point as well, which I'll do afterwards, which is quite interesting. I wonder it's a bit of a misinterpretation, etc. So we'll get to that one. But first, let's start with Bo.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think everyone knows Bo, one of the most smiley, enthusiastic, handsome men in e-commerce, present company excluded, of course. That's one of my favorite points at the moment. And I think it's a different sort of silo. So we've talked about silos in terms of tech all working on its own and not feeding into a central source. I think sometimes e-com brands have an issue where retention and acquisition work in different silos as well. So one of the things I was really happy about with yesterday's audit call is we had the person responsible for retention and the person responsible for acquisition on the same call, which doesn't always happen. So one of my favorite sort of reveals is about the integration that Klaviyo has with Google and Meta ads and TikTok ads and other ad platforms as well. So the abilities are on Google, it's pretty linear in terms of just audience setting. So what you can do is you can build segments in Klaviyo, and then you can sync them straight to Google and Meta for audience creation. So use cases for that would be exclusion audiences. So it's a really easy trick, Bo, for anyone that you're using brand terms. So brand terms are always a bit of a bone of contention when a paid ads agency is presenting their CAC, and it's like, yeah, but they're brand terms. And also, how many times are we paying 10p for someone to come to the website that's ordered in the last week and is just trying to find out where their order is or ask a question about it? So an exclusion audience of anyone that's ordered in the last 7 days from your Google brand campaign, because they're coming to you, they're going to find you anyway, they've already ordered. So let's not spend the £300 a month that we might be spending on them. The other use cases would be lookalike audiences. So here's the 5,000 best customers that I've got. Can we go out onto Meta and find another 500,000 people that are just like them for acquisition campaigns? The other side to the Meta integration then is you can use lead ads. So lead ads are a thing still, possibly not so much in e-commerce and more in like finance and property and stuff. But the problem with lead ads has always been is that they just populate a database over on the Meta end that then relies on someone exporting as a database, passing it on to the person at the brand or the sales team that want to go and qualify those leads, and then just getting around to it. Whereas with the Meta integration, the lead ad can feed straight into Klaviyo, straight into a specific flow that they can then trigger the next action. So that's pretty cool as well. There's so many times I see that either the integration exists but hasn't been working for 6 months because it needs to be re-authed as everything integrated with Facebook needs to be, or just not integrated at all. So really great question, and yeah, really great awareness. I'm more than happy to talk any paid media agencies through just how they can benefit from the Klaviyo integration. We've got a delay now, like with the like when the Eurovision Song Contest results are being delivered, a satellite delay.
I actually, I just keep tuning back in, and I'm like, why is he talking about Eurovision? Where have we gone? Igor raised a really interesting point, and I must have lost a bit of connection there, which is, he said, not a great idea. Slapping stuff and seeing what sticks is such a waste of time and energy, and might, if not for sure, backfire. And I was like, what did I miss there? Because I can't believe you just said, let's just throw thousands of things at the wall and see what sticks. So not sure if you know what that comment was relating to, but really curious to see where there might have been a misunderstanding there, because I can't believe anyone saying just try 1,000 things and one of them will work.
No, Igor, I think that was like 15 minutes ago. So Igor might be able to, if he's still on, drop another comment on to clarify. I think slapping stuff and seeing what sticks is such a waste of time and energy and might for sure fire back at you. Yeah, not sure where I'll have advocated for slapping stuff and seeing what sticks. It might have been when I was talking about integrating everything that you're using into Klaviyo and then just having the data firing in and stuff, and then using that data, looking at it over time and seeing what are the most interesting triggers, what are the most interesting points that you could then start testing from. But if Igor's still on and you can drop a note to say clarify a little bit more about what that was, then it might have been he was actually agreeing with a point I was making around that point, that sort of, so he's agreeing on where I've sort of been saying it's not a great idea. Because if anything, Igor, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I'm really glad. I was like, I'll leave it for 5 minutes and you're causing chaos. The question around email deliverability. Are you okay for time if we just do another 5 minutes? I'm just getting a few questions coming through.
Absolutely.
But I'm just curious around, so when you move Shopify accounts over and you migrate data, etc., you can't migrate the password. So you need people to kind of re-sign up to it or get their password for their account, etc. How do you recommend best doing that without totally trashing kind of sender reputation and email deliverability, etc., while trying to re-engage all those people to say, hey, we've now moved to Shopify, please click here, get your password, reset up your account, etc.?
Yeah, I think any migration platform, or any migration to Klaviyo. So if you've been on a MailChimp or an OmniSend or ActiveCampaign, you're moving into Klaviyo, you need to warm that domain. So warming is essentially the practice of just sending smaller chunks of emails and slowly building up in a warming sort of style, so that you're setting off with really great domain reputation. You just send to the most engaged 1,000 people in your audience to kick off with. You check the numbers. If they all work out, you then push that to 2,000, 4, 8. And every warming plan is slightly different dependent on the brand and the deliverability records, but you'll always do a warming. What's sometimes missed, though, is where the platform isn't changing, the CRM platform, so it's Klaviyo, but the Shopify migration, the CRM platform, the e-commerce platform is. That doesn't need a full warming, but it needs to have an element of warming, and like you mentioned, the term re-engagement. So my shout there would be to sort of look at what you need to do from a functionality point of view, and then look at how you can weave that into a plan that doesn't mean you are just on day one sending an email to 100,000 people saying, good news, we've got a new website, but you are going to need to go and re-sign up, because that is only really going to be relevant to a very tiny fraction of people that really have any need for an account. If you just send that first email as a first test to maybe people that have purchased in the last 30 days or new subscribers or something like that, get their engagement, and then ramp it up to maybe the people from the 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 180 day, then what you're doing is you're slowly ramping up that engagement, rather than spinning out a platform that's seeing that you're pushing links to a different site, or maybe even a slightly different sending name and stuff. So yeah, I think again, it kind of comes back to like, where do you put the CRM considerations into the project plan? Well, you do it right at the beginning. And so when on the Slack channel or the call, the weekly call to sort of discuss the deliverables from the agency, someone steps up and says, oh, we are going to need to email everyone to say that they need to change their password, then there is someone representing CRM and deliverability, whether it's in-house or external, that can go, okay, raise my hand, here's the considerations that we need to make.
Richard, just wanted to say thank you for today. Ever the professional, while I've been dipping in and out of internet connection, and it might even go again. But for now, thank you. For those that maybe want to find out more about these kind of deep dive audits that you're doing, maybe even get in touch and have one carried out, where do they go to get in touch?
I mean, website, we have the fairly unusual step of just publishing the audits and the prices for them. So they're there on the website. Just go to getbetter.co.uk, look for audits, and you can see what applies to you. From there, you can contact us through the website, either me or the much more favored lately, Jack. We'll pick up that and get in touch with you and just have a first call and just understand. So we don't really worry about ideal clients or anything. If you're selling stuff online and using or considering Klaviyo, we're more than happy to give you half an hour of our time. So just reach out via the website, via LinkedIn, anyway.
Very good. And for those that have stuck with it and bared with the internet signal, etc., we are releasing a Shopify migration playbook where some of these components will be covered in more detail. So if you prefer the written form where someone doesn't keep dropping out every 5 minutes, then certainly worth having a read of that, and that will be shared in the coming weeks. For now, Rich, a massive thank you. Thank you to those that contributed with their comments. I dare say there'll be another one of these, probably not when I'm dialing in from what looks like a dentist surgery. And so I look forward to going through part 2, where we can dig a little bit deeper, Rich, into some of those concepts. But for now, thank you. I wish you a fantastic day ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, Nate. Bye.